Welcome ladies and gentlemen, Michael aka Spirit Shard here with a PC launch overview of Final Fantasy XIII-2. Now I'm in the desktop mode, and that's because I want to show off this launcher when I talk about the Final Fantasy XIII, the first one that released on PC. It had some updates that ended up making some pretty major changes. Now if you don't know the launch issues that came with Final Fantasy XIII, you can check out my PC overview for that one as well. Or you can just chill out and I'll summer it up. So basically, Final Fantasy XIII launched and it was locked at 720p and it only goes up to 60 FPS. It still only goes up to 60 FPS. However, they have added graphics options. They also added, shadow resolution and anti-aliasing, much like this launcher. It actually looks just like this launcher with some different graphics in the background. So, you got full screen, you got all the resolutions. I believe this actually goes up if your monitor goes up. I can't speak for that though, because I only have a 1920 by 1080 monitor. But it does actually, render at all these different resolutions. And then there's also English and Japanese. Now this only applies if you have the English version. If you have the Japanese version in most Asian countries or whatever, that's what they're calling it on Steam. Don't get offended by that. Basically, you don't get it. So that kind of sucks. But if you have the English version, you get both of them. It makes the install larger, which I don't really like, but you gotta deal with it. And then also, the shadow resolution. So you can go all the way up to 8K shadows. This is the only thing that I have actually noticed having performance issues on my machine. Everything else seems to just be whatever. But I'm using 2K shadows. It gets rid of the little jaggies on the shadows and stuff like that. And it looks nice. It definitely helps. On console, I believe it was either 1024 or 512. This defaults to 1024. And it definitely shows. When you're going in game, it definitely looks better. And then there's also Anti-aliasing, which is MSAA. And it goes from 2 times to 16 times. I was playing with 2 times and it looks fine at 2 times. But since it defaults to 4 times, I'm going to leave it at that. Now, a special thing to note about the anti-aliasing is you have to have at least some sort of anti-aliasing on, because the game uses little rendering techniques to actually have, soft edges appear soft and stuff like that. So you need to make sure to have some sort of anti-aliasing on, or else those textures will look really muddy and really blocky and they won't look like they're intended and it looks terrible. So make sure that you do have some form of anti-aliasing on. Now for Final Fantasy XIII, the update that added all these options also seemed to improve performance for quite a few people. For me specifically, I'll show some gameplay in a second while I'm talking about this. So basically, in the area that I'm showing, I was running at about, 10 or 5 FPS when I was actually in some of these battles, and it was rather disruptive. It still didn't affect gameplay too much. The menus actually still function at low FPS rather effectively, and I was able to navigate just as quick as normal. And I think that's mainly because the menus aren't complicated and I wasn't scrolling through a lot of skills, but at the same time it did distract from the visuals quite a bit. Now the update actually made it quite significantly better. As you can see in the video, I'm running at least 25 FPS throughout the entire fight, which is a lot better than it was. It's still not good, it's still not great, but it is actually a lot more playable, and the increased resolution, as you can probably tell, does help it look a lot better. And I believe if I went down to 720p, it might perform better. I'm not sure. I'm not doing that because I like my 1080. So yeah, there that is. Anyways, we're back at the launcher and I'm going to start up the game. And that animation looks really cool in 60 FPS. So yes, this game is also locked to 60 FPS. And, it has all the resolution options and stuff like that, as I said. It also has one other feature. If you hit escape, it used to instantly close the game on Final Fantasy XIII. However, they updated it so that now it pops up a little menu that says yes or no. I expressed that I liked that it instantly closed the game. I mean, I'm a game dev. It's useful for in debugging and such as that, so I was used to it, but a lot of people couldn't, keep their hands off the escape key, and I even found myself doing it once or twice. But they ended up making it so that it shows up a window, and that does carry over to the first one as well. That was actually the first update to the first one, and introduced that little menu. Anyways, let's go ahead and look at the settings. There are a few settings different in this one, but since this is specific, I'm going to go through all of them. So the camera, you can invert it on dual as well, so each one individually or dual, which is really nice for a lot of people. This one also features camera sensitivity, which was rather surprising, and I increased this obviously because the camera in Final Fantasy XIII is really slow, so it's nice to be able to increase it here. There's magnify fonts, which you can turn on and it makes it basically just get bigger. It's easier to read on TVs from far away, but I went ahead and left that off, obviously, because the effect kind of looks weird and I don't really like it. It also doesn't scale well at all, so it just makes the textures bigger, which ends up making them even more blurry, which is a little strange. Although if you were running at 720p, that probably doesn't matter. If you're running at a TV from that distance, it's probably not going to matter either. And then there's subtitles and speaker names. I have those on. And then help messages is basically tutorial things that'll pop up. I would suggest having this on if it's your first time playing, since there are some mechanics that are different than the first Final Fantasy XIII. And if you haven't played 13.1, then definitely have this on, because it will help you a lot. Battle difficulty, we did get easy mode, which is pretty nice. So this version does have the normal and easy mode. I believe the easy mode was only in the Japanese version. I am not sure though. I didn't check on my 360 version if this actually was in there, so, but I believe that is added in, so that is nice. That's another feature that we get on the PC version that the consoles didn't generally have. Now the default battle commands, I would suggest leaving this at ability, not only because it's more fun, but because some of the battles are fairly difficult in this game. You can't go off auto battle as far in this game as you could in 13, and I think that's just because it's open world, so they assume you'd be a little bit more powerful, and so you will have to actually, you know, use your own abilities quite often and switch your paradigms a lot more in this game, which is good from a mechanical standpoint, but that's not a PC specific feature. I don't really know why I mentioned that, but yeah. Anyways, in target selection, from list or via cursor, this is essentially left or right or up or down or left and right. I said that backwards. And then minimap settings, I always have it as facing. That's not a big deal. And then the keyboard settings. So on here, the unrebindable stuff is up at the top in that nice little graphic. The movement is, you know, pretty standard, WASD, and then the arrow keys as well. And so you can also use that to go through the menus, which is fairly nice, and it functions, and it's pretty, you know, standard. You can also use the mouse for left clicks and right clicks. However, you will notice in these menus, there actually isn't any mouse control. So I'm moving my mouse right now, there is no mouse control in that, which is rather unfortunate. However, for the rebindings, you can't rebind the ones that are shown at the top, but luckily they're fairly standard. However, at the bottom, you can rebind all of these keys. So, you know, passive abilities, if I wanted to rebind that, I could. If I wanted to open the pause menu and rebind that, I can as well. I would suggest rebinding some of these because they're kind of like weird, like open the pause menu with 0 for some reason. I don't know. But you can actually set it so you can only need one hand to play the game, which is rather interesting. And then there's gamepad controls, which you can't rebind, but gamepad users are fairly used to this. It's not something we should be used to, but, you know, part of the skill of using a controller is getting used to the new control schemes. It's not that big of a deal in my opinion, but some people would like to see it, and I would like to see it as well. Not that big of a thing. And then you can also change your on-screen button explanation from keyboard to controller type. I don't know if it adjusts the controller type depending on the type of controller you have, but for me it shows the 360 buttons. I'm using a 360 controller, so that makes sense. Or if you're using like a PS3 controller, I don't know if it'll switch, but it might not, I don't know. Then there's also the staff credits and then the middleware stuff, which is used for the videos. Now, if you've never played Final Fantasy XIII, the first one, and you want to jump straight into 13.2, which I don't suggest, I suggest going through the first one and actually playing through the story and stuff, because it is better. However, well, not better game, it's better for the story. However, for the people that don't want to do that for some reason, can look through the Beginner's Prime, or if you didn't play 13 for quite a while, you can also go through the Beginner's Prime, and it basically just summarizes all the events through all the chapters and goes over all the important bits so that you won't end up missing out on a lot of story. This looks really cool in FPS, by the way, or 60 FPS, by the way. So go ahead and check it out if you want to. But I'm going to continue right into my game save. Okay, so I have loaded into the very first area of the game to kind of talk about a little bit of this stuff. So the first thing I want to mention is the performance. For people who played Final Fantasy XIII, the first one on PC, they know that it had a lot of performance issues. Now, this game does have a lot of performance issues. As you can see, my FPS drops when I face that direction, but the performance issues are not nearly as bad as in 13's launch, and 13 has improved quite a bit with the last update as well. However, this game does, right out of the box, it performs better than 13 did, which is a huge plus. However, it is not, you know, kind of like standard FPS. Like if I look in this direction, it goes down. There is no reason that my PC should be having issues with this game. However, I am recording, so don't exactly take these FPS values at face value, but the FPS is not too great in this game. The optimization is definitely pretty bad. However, they have been talking, you know, about doing updates and stuff like that, so there is a possibility that all this stuff can be fixed, such as the last big update to the first game, which also carries over to this game, to where the performance actually increased quite a bit. So the optimization could obviously be fixed up and changed quite a bit, and I hope that it does. Now, as you can see, the game looks rather good. It carries over all the same textures and stuff like that, so some of the textures could use a little work, but given that the game was designed for 720p, it looks pretty good. Like, it's Final Fantasy, the art direction is obviously good, and the outfits look really good. Also, the shadows, the increased shadows, help the game out quite a significant amount as well, especially at higher resolutions. It makes the game look quite a lot better. Now, one of the other things about the game that I actually like is, this one obviously has a lot of other effects, but then one of the things I don't like about the game is that a lot of these effects don't scale. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the video at any point in time, because I don't know if I can recreate it, but some of the more cinematic areas, especially when you first get into this area, they try to make it all cinematic by adding a bunch of motion blur and, well, not motion blur, but depth of field and all these other small effects. But those effects don't scale with the resolution, so a lot of people, when they first started up the game, they were complaining about the game being blurry, and it's because these resolutions of these special effects don't actually scale up to whatever resolution you're running. So the larger resolution you're running, the blurrier it's going to be. That also carries over to the UI. As you can see, the map, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it does look a little bit pixelated, and this carries over to the battle UI. Let me go ahead and go into a battle. Now, the audio also sounds a little bit better for my machine. I'm not sure if that's just because of my audio drivers or something like that, but the audio does sound a little bit clearer for some reason. When I played the 360 version, I had a little complaint about the audio being a little bit muddy a little bit. But I don't seem to be having that issue here. That could have just been a, hardware issue with my Xbox. But that's, one of the cases. So we're going to go ahead and go into a battle. Now, the battles are kind of a mixed bag when it comes to FPS, and as you can see with the, UI, it does look a little bit pixelated. As I said, I don't know if that'll actually show up in the YouTube video, but yeah, this UI actually looks pretty good, and the animations in 60 FPS look pretty good as well. But as I was saying, the battles are a very mixed bag when it comes to FPS. Some battles I run at perfect 60 FPS, like no drops whatsoever. Other battles I go down all the way to like 15 FPS. It's very, very random. And I think that depends on the enemies you're fighting, but sometimes I really don't know why it does it. Sometimes it seems like it's performing bad for no reason at all. Like, this fight, I just did another fight of this, and, this fight went down a lot lower than the other one. So it's a little strange. So the game does have some optimization issues, and people who played the first Final Fantasy XIII on PC, they kind of expected this. They didn't expect it to be, oh my god, amazing. Although they did hope that they fixed more of it, it is better than 13's release. So I guess that's a positive in some respect. Now, one thing I do want to mention about it though, is that all this, FPS lag and unoptimization doesn't actually affect the gameplay all too much. As in, like, I'm not experiencing any input delay, I'm able to navigate through the menus just as fast as normal. All my clicks register. It's not something that actually affects the gameplay too much, it's just visually unappealing. And also, the console version had these FPS drops as well, and that's a huge problem with the console version, and the console version also ran at lower resolutions. So if you're looking to get this version or the console version, this version actually looks a lot better, and at least on my machine and a lot of people's machines, it performs better than the console version. There is one exception though about the performance that I do want to mention, and it has to do with actually a visual effect that they might have used some sort of trick that they use on consoles that doesn't work on PC, and that is it's an effect with rain, and I'll end up showing that in a second. As soon as this battle's over, I'll go back to the crux. And these battles, this is the first area, so these battles are actually going rather quick. Yay, if I started that one, I got a potion. Yay. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the Historia Crux, which is essentially your world map on this game. So I'm going to load in. There we go. The loading for that is rather quick. Oops, I accidentally closed the gate. So yeah, you can't close the gate. And all this menu stuff actually runs at 60 FPS, which is pretty nice. I didn't mean to do that. I'll open that again. I actually hadn't seen this. So yeah, this is actually all running at 60 FPS and it looks really nice. I don't know how well it'll show up on the YouTube video, as always. YouTube's kind of questionable about that. Anyways, on this save, I only have it over to the second area, but that's fine because it has everything that I want to show. Alright, so we just loaded into the Brescia Ruins. My loading times are not exactly good, and when you first go into an area, it does have some FPS lag when you first start it up, at least on my machine. And so, yeah, the loading times are kind of long. They're not as long as the console version from what I can tell, but they are longer than I would have preferred. However, it is loading an entire open world, like little area. If you've never played the game, basically there's different sections that it loads into, and it's open world. You can travel between the sections whenever you want. Anyways, so there is one visual effect that is different than the console version and is debatably not better, and I believe it's just a visual glitch that I want to get fixed. I'm going to skip that battle, and it's the rain. I don't know how well this will show up on the video, but the rain is actually like this white kind of staticky look that actually wasn't in the console version, and this is obviously a bug. However, I felt it was important to note. Apparently there's an invisible wall here. I'm going to go down here. Anyways, I felt it was important to note because a lot of people are freaking out about it, and it's the only visual effect that I've actually found different than both versions in a negative way. However, it could get distracting. Luckily, this is only an effect in 2 different areas, and it doesn't affect all rain. It seems to only affect rain in 2 areas, and those 2 areas, you're really not in the area for that long. They're actually one of the shorter areas with the least amount of secrets. So, you know, obviously, I talked about performance and all that. The resolution is obviously nice to have. It's pretty awesome to have the resolution. I'm running out of time for this. I don't know if I'll be able to run this from this battle. I want to run from this battle. Let me run from this battle. I'm not going to run from this battle. Oh, there we go. Okay, just in time. I probably should have just fought that. That would have been quicker. Alright, so I kind of tore this game apart for its performance and all that. You know, the performance isn't great. If you're on a low-end machine, you're not going to run this game very well at all. And if you have a higher machine, you're still not going to run it all. However, it is just as good or better than the console version, so you'll be perfectly fine with that. No matter what version you get, I have a feeling it's just engine issues, and I had the same complaint about the first one. I'm assuming now it's just performance issues with the engine, and the engine just needs to be optimized a little bit more. Hopefully they take the time to update the engine and, you know, make the performance better. Anyways, I'm going to move on to what are the positives. So for one, obviously it looks better. That's the number one positive. However, the console version came out with a bunch of DLCs. Now for this version, they actually came out with all the gameplay DLCs with the game, and I'm going to do a battle while I'm talking about this. So all the story DLC and all the extra battles DLC that came with different battles and different partners actually is included in this version. So that is a huge plus. I believe the game is $16 right now, or your regional equivalent. I got it for $15 on a pre-order thing, I believe. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, I pre-ordered it quite early. But basically, it's a huge deal bonus, because if you still want to buy it used on console, it can be quite expensive with all the DLC costing about $5 each. Now, you also can notice I'm not wearing the default Sarah outfit, and that's because if you go into the menus and go down to outfits, you can actually change the outfits. It came with the default outfit, of course. You got the Summoner's Garb, which was a pre-order bonus, the Beach Wear, and the White Mage. So I'm using the White Mage. Here's the default outfit. I'll let it load. It does take a little bit to load. And then for Noel, you got his Black Mage outfit, which is the one I'm wearing right now. I like these ones, of course. And then there's the default outfit, and you also get the Battle Attire, which I believe was a pre-order bonus as well. And then you also get the Space-Time Guardian. Obviously, I like the Black Guardian. And then you get all the Mog outfits, which is pretty nice. And obviously, I'm using the cat because I like cats. One thing to mention about the DLC, though, is that we didn't get any of the licensed outfits. So the outfits like the Altair outfit, I believe it was Assassin's Creed, you know, outfit or whatever, and then the Mass Effect armor, and I don't remember if they had any others. I really wasn't too interested in the extra outfits. But they didn't get any of those. I believe that that's because of licensing issues. But the other thing we also didn't get is we didn't get any of the weapons. So, you know, just so you believe me, where is my equipment? Yeah, so we didn't get any of the extra weapons, so you only get the weapons that are in the game. However, there's obvious reasons why they did that. The DLC weapons were actually a lot more powerful than the weapons you could find in the game, or they were slightly altered versions of like the most powerful weapons you could find in the game. With the exception of some of the pre-order bonuses. They had a lot of pre-order bonuses for this game for some reason. Anyways, yeah, they broke certain balances of the game, so I'm actually happy that they're not included, and including it for people who had never even played the game before, without making them pay some sort of premium, you know, if they thought they needed it, would actually ruin some of the balance and some of the experience for some of the players, which obviously is a bad thing. So I'm happy that they didn't do that. However, all the, you know, gameplay stuff and some of the outfits, I rather like some of these outfits. I personally like the white and black mage one the best, obviously, because I'm using them. But all the gameplay stuff and all the story stuff is all included in this game. So that is a good plus. Other positives to it is, you know, you'll be able to use whatever controller you want. There are ways to use a PS3 controller, and you know, pretty much any controller you want, you can use different programs to use that. So, you know, basically the general perks of playing on PC is definitely, you know, going towards this game. You can turn on the Anisotropic, which I also have set on. For the performance, I should mention that I did have different types of settings in my Nvidia control panel that do help with performance. I will end up putting those in the description, as well as my launcher settings, which we saw earlier, so that, you know, you can test that out and see if that affects your performance at all. You can also try, you know, switching it up. However, I did also include those with the original Final Fantasy XIII, so it carries over to the last one as well. I believe there are some minor changes to it from that version, so you can go ahead and change your settings for that game as well. And it did help my performance quite a bit in certain sections. It still drops quite a bit. Now, if you've never played Final Fantasy XIII, this is carrying over to if you should buy this or not. If you've never played it, this is definitely the version to get. It's the cheapest for one, and, well, theoretically the cheapest if you want all the DLC. And it's also got the most content with all the DLC, and it's got some of the outfits, and it performs the best on most machines. I can't say all machines. If you have a low-end machine, I wouldn't suggest getting it. I'm really not sure. The main problem with this game is the fact that it doesn't use your system's full power because of the optimization issues. Oh, also, I forgot one thing to mention. The game also doesn't have rumble feature. I completely forgot to mention that. So if you're using a controller, it doesn't actually have that rumble feature. I believe that that's important for some people. However, I do believe the visuals are more important, and in a game like this, I don't feel like rumble feature is really required. Anyways, as in if you should buy this game. If you've never played it, I definitely recommend it. However, I do recommend playing the first one first if you haven't played that one yet. If you have played that one, then yeah, definitely pick this up. Pick up this version. It is definitely a lot better than the console version, at least visually. The only, you know, anomaly that I saw was the actual rain texture, which I already showed you guys. Other than that though, it at least performs just as good as the console version, if not better, depending on your machine. Now, if you've played the game and you didn't like it, there's absolutely no reason to pick this up. The PC version is not going to change your mind whether you actually like the game or not. Unless, of course, the lower FPS is and the lower resolution is the reason why you didn't like it, there's no reason to pick it up. However, if you have played it and you like the game a lot, it's definitely a good thing to, you know, play through it again, see the different visuals, or if you didn't have all the DLC, that extra in-game content is going to add a lot of hours to this game. A lot of those battles take a long time, and although I didn't actually own them, you know, I'm actually, you know, excited to get to that point. I want to play through and see those new battles and see that new story section, so I'm actually excited to go through all this game again. And, you know, it's going to be a fun trip, but the performance is a big drawback. So if you can't deal with the performance drops, you know, maybe not pick it up. Maybe wait for some updates or something like that. I do have a feeling they will update this. They still have Lightning's Return to release on PC as well. And for that game being more action-oriented, I really hope that they do some performance, you know, updates. They do have forum moderators and stuff like that, you know, constantly talking with us, being like, hey, yeah, we're forwarding all your issues, and it worked before. We got some updates, we got custom resolutions and all that. So, you know, if you own the game and you want to, you know, talk about that and mention that, definitely head over to the Square Enix forums and all that and throw in your word. Anyways, so final conclusion, if you haven't played it, buy it. That is my recommendation. If you don't like JRPGs, then don't buy it, of course. If you didn't like the game originally, don't buy it. However, if you did like the game originally and you didn't get all the DLC, definitely get it. If you did have all the DLC and you maxed all your characters, I would put it on the edge of, if you really liked it, then go ahead and pick it up. However, there's nothing added to it to actually make it worth getting again if you already maxed everything out with all the DLC. Anyways, this is my Michael, aka Spirit Shard. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments or message me on Twitter. I'll make sure to get back to everyone as soon as I can with the most information I can. I am willing to help people with their performance issues. As I said, I will have my performance, modifications or Nvidia control panel, which also works for AMD if you put it in their equivalent systems. And I'll have that all in the description below, as well as my launcher settings. So make sure to check that out. Peace out, and see you guys next time.